Welcome to another episode of Voices from the Void. Tonight is a listener's tale. This one was given to me by one of my followers, and it's a chilling story. It's called The Shadow People. They woke up in the middle of the night, frozen, paralyzed, and in the corner of their room stood a tall, dark figure. No face, just a shadow. They couldn't move, they couldn't scream, and the figure didn't vanish. It just stared at them. People around the world report the same thing. They call them the shadow people. It actually happens to me. I've seen this several times. Some scientists say it's just sleep paralysis, the brain half dreaming, but others swear it's real because sometimes the shadow leans closer and they feel hands pressing them down. So, what do you believe? Science or something darker? Drop your story in the comments, and I'll share the creepiest ones next time. Welcome to another episode of Voices from the Void. My name is Gideon Blackthorn, keeper of the Haunted Library. Now, tonight, the Haunted Library opens not to a forgotten manuscript, but to a figure whispered about across continents, cultures, and centuries. A figure seen in the corner of rooms, standing in the doorway and at the foot of the bed, always watching. Tonight, we speak of the Hat Man. Now, people describe him almost the same way, even though they've never spoken to one another. It's a tall, shadow-like figure with no face, no eyes you can truly see, and just a silhouette darker than the dark around it. But on his head, a hat. Now, sometimes it's a fedora, and sometimes it's a wide brim hat, like something from another era. And occasionally, it's a top hat, tall and unmistakable. Now, he doesn't run, and he does not speak. He just watches. Now, most encounters happen at night, and witnesses wake suddenly, unable to move. Their chest feel heavy, their breath shallow, and there, in the doorway or beside their bed, he stands. People report overwhelming dread, a certainty deep in their bones that they are not alone. And some say he leans closer, and some say that he simply waits there. And when the paralysis breaks, he is gone. No footprints, no sound, only the memory. Now, what makes the Hat Man truly disturbing, it's just not one story, but thousands. Children, adults, skeptics, and scientists, people who've never heard the legend describe the same thing, the same shape, the same hat, and the same silent presence. And in different countries, different languages, different centuries. So, how do strangers see the same nightmare? Some believe that the Hat Man is a hallucination tied to sleep paralysis, a trick of the brain under stress. Others believe he is something older, a watcher between worlds, a shadow that feeds on fear, and being that appears when the veil is thin. And then there are those who say this: if you see him once, he may come back. Because the Hat Man doesn't chase, he waits. Now, if this is only a trick of the mind, why does he wear a hat from another time? And if it's something more, why does he appear to so many yet never speak? And most chilling of all, why does he seem to be watching us, as if waiting for something? Thanks for wandering the library with me tonight. Until next time on Voices from the Void, may your nights be a little spookier and your bookshelves a little more mysterious. A 6-year-old boy in 1971 saw him standing in the doorway. He had never heard of the name, he had never seen a horror movie, and he had never been told what to look for. And yet he described him exactly. Welcome to Voices from the Void. My name is Gideon Blackthorne, and I am the keeper of the haunted library. Now, tonight we open the case further on a figure the library has not forgotten because he keeps appearing in accounts that no one can explain away. This is the story of the Hat Man. Now, the last time we opened this case, we talked about one encounter, one doorway, and one night. But since that episode opened, something became clear. You have seen him too. The comments came in from people who had never told anybody, people who recognized the silence, the stillness, the hat. And every single one of them asked the same question: why does everyone see the same thing? That's where tonight begins, because the answer to that question is darker than the figure himself. In 2001, a man named Timothy M. Brown Jr. launched a website called the Hatman Project. He did it not to sensationalize, not to sell something, but because he had seen the figure himself and then discovered he was not remotely alone. Within months, accounts began pouring in from across the world. People who had never met, people who have never compared notes, described the same thing: the same height, the same stillness, and that same wide brim hat. 20 years of collected testimony later, the archive holds hundreds of accounts. The earliest reported sightings in the archive dates back to 1950s, decades before the internet could spread an image, decades before a meme could plant a template in someone's mind. They saw him then, and they kept quiet about it because no one would have believed them. Here is where the science gets uncomfortable. Dr. Brian Sharpless, a clinical psychologist and author of Sleep Paralysis: Historical, Psychological, and Medical Perspectives, conducted a formal study. He expected to catalog the standard hallucinations: demons, witches, aliens. But what his subjects kept describing instead was a shadow figure, tall, hatted, silent, standing and watching. Shadow figures topped the list, not a distant second, they topped it. And Dr. Sharpless is not a paranormal researcher. He's a clinical psychologist publishing in peer-reviewed journals. He wasn't looking for the Hat Man. The Hat Man showed up in his data anyway. Now, the sleep paralysis explanation, you've heard it. The brain wakes before the body, hallucinations fill the gap, and the Hat Man is what fear looks like when it wears a human shape. Now, that explanation has one problem. Not all of the sightings happen during sleep. A construction site near California, multiple workers, different shifts, different men filed reports describing a shadow figure that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Dogs on site reacted. Shift supervisors documented it. And not one of these men was asleep. Not one of them was in bed. And whatever they saw cast no shadow of its own. Drivers in Appalachia and the American Southwest have reported a brimmed silhouette standing on the shoulder of the road. And when high beams swept across it, it didn't scatter. It simply isn't there anymore. No footsteps, no dust, no explanation. These are waking people fully alert, seeing the same figure that thousands of others in the dark have seen in their bedrooms. This is the detail that sleep paralysis theory can't account for, and the researchers know it. Medical anthropologist Shelley Adler spent years collecting and studying these accounts. What she had concluded was this: the entity has stalked human beings throughout history, not merely within a particular society and not during a specific time. This is not a modern phenomenon, not a product of the internet, not a shared meme planted in the collective unconscious. The Greek physician Cyrannus wrote about it in the 2nd century. He describes sleeping patients experiencing demonic attacks, overwhelming dread, chest pressure, and a sense of presence, paralysis. He had no name for the figure, but the patients knew exactly what they had seen. And now we arrive at the part of the case that the library keeps in a locked room. Between 1978 and 1988, the Centers of Disease Control documented 117 deaths among the Hmong refugees settled in the United States from Laos. 117 deaths, all in their sleep. All otherwise healthy men. None had complained of illness before going to bed. And in the Hmong tradition, there exists an entity that they call the Dabchaw. It's a night spirit, a figure that visits in the darkness, that holds you down, that takes your breath. Before the deaths began, family members reported that their husbands, fathers, and brothers had been telling them about a nightmare and visitors, something coming to them in the dark, something that they were afraid to describe. 117 men who were afraid to go to sleep and that then didn't wake up. The CDC's classified it as a sudden unexplained nocturnal death syndrome, SUNS. They had a medical term, but what they did not have was a medical cause. And to this day, no one has identified exactly why these men died. The Hmong community had its own answer. The Dab song came for them. The night visitor, the watcher in the dark. Different name, different culture, same figure standing in the doorway waiting to be noticed. Now, here's the question that medical anthropologist Shelley Adler spent years trying to answer. What if the fear itself was the weapon? The dread that built every night before sleep? What if that accumulated terror was enough to stop a healthy heart in the dark? Not a hallucination, not a demon, not a neurological glitch, but something that bridges all three. Something that is real enough to kill you. Three things the official record still can't explain. One, why do so many people who have never heard of the name, never seen an image, never read a single account describe the same identical detail? The age, the hat, the stillness, the watching. Children raised in isolation from pop culture have described him before they learned to read. A 6-year-old in 1971, a 5-year-old in 1984. No internet, no horror movies, no template, same figure. And another question is, why does he appear to people who are fully awake? Construction workers, drivers, people in grief, people with fever, people who are not in bed and not asleep, not in any state that the sleep paralysis explanation can reach. Now, if he's only a product of paralyzed brain, why does he keep showing up when the brain is operating normally? And three, what killed the Hmong men? 117 healthy men, no medical cause, a tradition that said that the night visitor had come for them, and every single one of them had been afraid to sleep. The sleep paralysis theory says the brain invents him, but the brain does not invent a figure that matches across 100 cultures, 100 centuries in bedrooms, on roadsides, and in construction sites in Northern California. Something is out there, standing very still, waiting to be recognized. And the question that will burn in you tonight, after the lights go off, is not whether he exists, is whether he's already found your doorway. Thank you for wandering the library with me tonight. Until next time on Voices from the Void, may your nights be a little spookier and your bookshelves a little more mysterious.